Welcome to Baku Breeze with Kaluki Paul Mutuku, Art Now Media, communicating impact for climate, nature, people and development. Each day, new inspirations with amazing global change makers who are telling us in their own words what they are doing, what is changing, and how we can be part of the solutions. And today, we are joined by the amazing Leo. He'll tell us his other name. I don't want to butcher it, but Leo, welcome to the stage. Maybe tell us about yourself, where you come from, what do you do?
Thank you very much. I'm from Berlin. I'm here at COP because I believe you're right when you say we want to know what we can do. I really appreciate that.
That's amazing. I know from my interaction with you, like you're very big on action for climate empowerment. The truth is, we need action on climate. We need solutions. We need people who are delivering the solutions at home. Could you tell us about maybe what are some of the programs you're working on, the solutions you're delivering back home?
I think you've already mentioned the key word, people, right? That's the main thing. So we're in ACE, Action for Climate Empowerment. We're trying to find solutions of how to engage all members of society. That includes activists, researchers, minority opinions, actually a very diverse range of perspectives. And by that we try to have both, well, the people who emit greenhouse gases, as well as the people who are affected by it, contribute to the discussion, and then we can hopefully reach the best possible outcome in our discussions.
That's a good one, and that brings me to the next question. You are at COP, and I'm imagining you've come to COP with ACE. So what is the message that has brought you to COP in terms of action for climate empowerment?
So personally, I came here with interests that are very diverse. But one of the ones that is just stands out to me, because we've been successful on that front, is activism and acknowledging the contributions that activism, both with actually doing something, but also media activism, contributes to climate protection. And I'm very happy to say that now it's public. We have, yesterday the delegations have passed a resolution that allows the UN to acknowledge the major contributions that these parts of society actually have to provide for our climate protection programs. In paragraph 4 of the ACE resolution text that was passed, it says that the United Nations recognizes the importance for ACE of all members of civil society to contribute.
Like an all of society approach and engagement to make this possible. And I'm just wondering, there might be someone who's watching us and maybe they're wondering, what is this climate action for climate empowerment? What components does it entail? Do you care to explain to us, like a bit in depth, what this climate empowerment is and the different categories of action for climate empowerment?
Yes, of course. So Action for Climate Empowerment has made a major breakthrough at these negotiations. To start very simple, it's trying to gather people from all perspectives and backgrounds, get them to be included in the process of climate protection. For that, there are 6 different categories. They're ranging from what most people know, education, but all the way through training. And especially for mitigation and adaptation measures, training is really important and has been sort of neglected in the past. And that's why out of all these 6, I think it's important to make sure we emphasize all of them and have, well, if we have more time, I'd go into each one. But just in general, I would say it's good that we've made progress on that front, because the ACE group of delegates, they weren't able to agree on anything at the last session. This was SBI 60 in Bonn in June, and there was no consensus. So they didn't even acknowledge the annual report of the Secretariat. They didn't acknowledge any progress that was made in the global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. And at COP29, at the SBI 61, they were able to agree on something. And not only that, all fronts were able and willing to compromise and come to a very, very productive conclusion. And that, I think, stands out because in this text, we do not only emphasize education at all. It's not at the forefront of ACE anymore. And that, I think, is a major step forward.
Wow. And isn't that the beauty of negotiations and diplomacy? At times, the nuances are there. It may take long, but surely, as long as there's progress, no matter how slow, it's still progress. And now that we can celebrate these things, it speaks to the resilience that comes with such pushes and ensuring that we are ready, to compromise and give space for each other, listen to each other, and actually allow ourselves to see the longer picture. So I'm really happy that all these is breakthroughs happening, and that you are part of the amazing, people that are witnessing this, observing, and actually also informing us that actually this is happening and it's here with us. Right now, there are young people who definitely want to engage in the space. How would you encourage them to navigate in terms of action for climate empowerment? Where can they start?
What I really like about what's happening here and what has been passed yesterday is I don't need to do the encouragement. The United Nations are doing it. I mean, we sit here at Extreme Hangout, which is, I think, about sports a little bit too. And I think what's really cool about sports is the harder it was to get to the finish line, the more moving it is, the more emotional mobility is in each person who consumes the sport and participates either by watching or taking part. And the same thing is happening in negotiations. If you don't have people compromising very much, then, well, the least common denominator is a very small piece. And it's not extremely encouraging to listen to that and have a response from the United Nations to your issues. But in this case, I remember extra sessions of the G77 in China for hours and hours this week. And then, the Arab group, but also the United States, United Kingdom, European Union, they were all backstage talking, trying to find common ground. And that way they were able, like in sports, to achieve something that was very hard to get to. And the conclusion of that is paragraph 4. That speaks to all of us. So I don't need to do the encouragement for young people. It's actually the United Nations.
The UN has done it,
The
right?
UN is telling you, you are important. What you do matters. And we acknowledge the extreme importance of what you do for climate protection.
Wow.
And that's a statement by the United Nations.
Wow. There you have it, that, it's a little thing that you're doing, and already you have a space through the UN. Adoption of these aids that actually allows you to participate, be part of the change, and lead something from home. Leo, I know it's a finance conference, they're calling it that, and of course, action for climate empowerment, cuts across nature, people, development. How do you see the conversation coming along to the general conference? Like, is there a future for nature climate?
What I can tell you from my network and the context that I'm working on, working with both in adaptation, mitigation, loss and damage, and finance, is that there are different fronts struggling to finance and fund in different ways. The main problem is it going to be a public grant or private investment formed as a loan? And that also is the case for nature preservation. Obviously, in that regard, it gets even more complicated because there's a desertification cup and the biodiversity cup and then the climate change cup. And all these three together, they're not negotiated together at the same time. But I've heard of some heads of delegation that they are actually very much in touch with the other two conferences that are going on. And that makes me hopeful that in the future, in the upcoming conferences, not this one, they'll be able to find common ground of how to cover all of them. For now, I think the best step forward that can happen is to have a separate loss and damage fund that'll be available not only to state actors, but also to private people who have suffered from climate change. And so that way, I think it'll be accessible to also fund reforestation projects and water access projects that wouldn't otherwise be possible to do. And I think this is part of nature preservation, isn't it?
Oh, amazing. Definitely it is. And hopefully they can all continue speaking to each other, and that we can have joint solutions between the diversity, desertification and climate change conferences and all that. I promise it's the last question I'm asking you, and I just wonder, for someone who's watching you, someone wants to get more encouragement to do the work they are doing back at home, what would your final message be to them?
My final message should be the same one that I portray in sports, because I'm an Olympic athlete, right? That's how I got to the international stage the first time. My final message would be that what we're doing is not just for us, it's for everyone. Every small contribution that you make will be a major step forward for the world. So every little thing, every time you contribute to climate protection, to nature preservation, it's worth it, because there are 8 billion people in the world profiting from that small step. And it's the same in sports. It connects us, it unites us in a way that is unimaginable without culture, sports, and well, in a way, civil action. And I believe climate change does the same thing. We're all in this together.
Every little action counts. Well, thank you so much for that amazing exit response, and again for really honoring our invitation to be on the studio to contribute to the changemaker voices that you bring to this conference, that you're also bringing back home in your community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, and it's been an honor hosting this session, Kaluki Paul Mutuku, with Admiral Media, communicating climate impacts for climate, nature, people, and development. Catch us on the Silence of COP each single day as we bring to you amazing changemakers in their own words, what they're doing and how we can be part of this story. Thank you so much.